All right, so obviously I'm going to preach about losing your marbles today, and I feel like I'm a good candidate to talk about that. I only get to talk about something every once in a while, and so I have to talk about something that I'm actually quite passionate about, and it is that all of us, in a sense, are losing our marbles. One of the things that I'm extremely passionate about is about having faith-filled families here at Fairmont Park. One of the things that I believe in is I believe in parents raising up their kids in the Lord. I believe that it's not just something that has to do with people who are raising people who are under 18, but it's something that the whole family does. That this is a sermon, although it may be focused on raising up children, that it's not something that is just about parents. It's about spiritual grandparents. It's about spiritual brothers and sisters. And with that in mind, I want to talk about kids. And so if you have your Bible, open it up to 2 Timothy. And Mike spoke about 2 Timothy chapter 4 a couple weeks back and talked about coming before winter. But as I read this passage in 2 Timothy chapter 4, starting in verse 6, Paul says this to his disciple that he's mentored along the way. He says, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering. The time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only to me, but also to all those who have longed for his appearing." Now that's a verse that totally makes sense when I want to talk about raising kids, right? Like that completely makes sense, but here's where I'm going with this. Is we have to begin with the end in mind. So, when I'm raising Jeremiah, I have to think, I want him to be like you, Smokey. I want him to be passionate about sharing God's love with people who don't know it. And so I need you. I need you to help me teach my son to be like that. I want my daughters to be like you, Miss Debbie. I want them to be loving. I want them to be compassionate and caring and a great helper. I want my children to be leaders like Jason, to not be afraid to get up and lead when called upon. That's what it takes. It takes us beginning with that thought, and what are we going to do now to affect the change later? Okay? What are we going to do now? And so, we're talking about losing our marbles. We're going to be over in Deuteronomy. It was up during communion. Hopefully you read that during communion. Deuteronomy chapter 6. The Jews called this the Shema. When Jesus was asked by a scribe, a teacher in the law, and you can read that in Matthew chapter 22, and he said, "What is the greatest command?" And Jesus quotes this. He quotes this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 6, and he says, "Hear, O Israel," starting in verse 4, "Love the Lord our God. The Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength." Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but we have a couple young kids at Fairmont Park. And that's a great thing, right? That's a great thing. I want you to know that I am thankful that we have a noisy congregation, because that means it's alive. That means it's a family. That means it's a place where we can have babies and we can have old people, and it's wonderful. But I want to tell you something. Parents of little ones, you only have 936 weeks. 936 weeks to prepare them for whatever end you have in mind. How you want them to lead, how you want them to grow, how you want them to serve. You have 936 weeks. And I'm betting that there's some of us in here who have some that have a little bit less than 936 weeks. But it starts with this jar right here. How many of you remember this? This is that first 2 years of their life. How many of you remember this week right here, that week that, I remember the week we took them from the hospital, and how nervous I was with Elizabeth. Like, I think I spent an hour getting that car seat just right in the car. And I was really worried about getting that right. And then how about this one? This is like the best week ever. This is the week they slept through the night. Right? Right? And how about this one right here? This was a fun week for me. This is a week that my kids laughed for the first time. I remember that. I remember them having joy. This is the week that they rolled over. How about this one? The week that they said lost my marbles. There we go. This is the week they said their first word. Maybe it was dad. Maybe it was mom. This is the week they said their first full sentence. I don't know what that is. Maybe it was I love you. For me, here's a good one for you to work on, D. My first sentence was I want a Coke. So there you go. Just keep working on that. But these are all these weeks in here. This is the week that they walk. How precious is that? To be present for that moment. To be aware that even in this little bitty moment right here, when they're little bitty and most of the time they're resting, that we're focusing on helping them fall more in love with Jesus and His Word. Because even when they have little bitty toy cars, and even when we're singing songs like, I love to pat the Bible, for it is God's Word. That's important stuff. And there are ladies and men in this congregation who serve children that are young, and you are valuable and you are important. I don't want you to ever feel like, because you may not stand up on this stage, that you are not important. Because you are investing in the church of today and the church of tomorrow, because our kids are part of our church today. So, this is just a phase. You've heard it said before, that phrase, that this is just a phase, that they'll get over it. It's also true that this is just a phase, that it's passing. Like I would love to go back and get to redo some of the weeks that I had in this phase. And I know there are other people who wish that they could as well. So take heart. This is just a phase. Then we roll into this one right here. This is the next 4 years of their life till they turn 6. There's a lot of neat firsts that happen in this one as well. Here's the first week they go to school. Here's the first time that that they go to see a friend. Maybe they stay the night at a friend's house. This is when they start developing those childhood friends. Here's some that first time when you sit down with them and you get to hear them pray. It's that week right there. And how precious is that? To get to hear that little voice lifting up a prayer to God. That's awesome. And this is just phase 2. And we may play with more cars like this. We may be pushing them back and forth to one another. They start engaging with us more at this time, and we still have this Bible right here. But we're singing, Oh, How I Love Jesus. We're singing, My God is so big, so strong, and so mighty. There's nothing my God cannot do. We're instilling in them faith. We're instilling in them a future. We're beginning with the end in mind. And the thing is at this point, a lot of people may feel like, you know what, I don't have little kids, I have nothing to offer. You have amazing things to offer. Because parents who are in this stage right here, it is very critical for them to have you come alongside and to help them and to partner with them and to help them see the end and to help them to look and visualize a future for their children. This is when your kids really start becoming a part of Catherine's ministry. And I want to tell you something right now, and this may sound harsh, but it needs to be said. God gave you those kids. God gave you those kids to raise up in Him. Partner with Catherine to raise them up in the Lord. Don't leave that on her. Partner with her, because she's here to help. She's back there right now hanging out with a bunch of 2-year-olds to pre-K kids because she loves them. Because she loves your kids. But God gave them to you. You help. Actually, you raise them in the Lord and let Catherine help. Because this is just a phase. Lost the marble again. This one's a hard one for me. Because I just got done passing this one right here. This is halftime. This is till they turn 9. This is a lot of people's favorite age. They remember their children when they were playing and they enjoy it. But this phase is important. This is when children start developing and really growing in who they will be. It's when their personalities start breaking out. This is that first grade teacher that they love. How many of us loved a first grade teacher, second grade teacher? Absolutely, because those people were important in our lives, because this was a week that is very valuable. And we shouldn't act like this is not important. We shouldn't act like these weeks right here don't matter, because they matter amazing amounts. This right here is a week that they come to VBS and they're blessed. And they get to sing and they get to hang out with people from our community that may not look exactly like them. And we get to teach them what service is about. We get to teach them about the stories of the Bible. We also get to teach them how to love people who may look a little different. This is that first week of camp that they get to go to. And I hope that you're starting to let your kids go to camp. It's a great time to be encouraged and to be built up. I want to tell you something. Go with them. This is an important week in their life, and you should be there. Go with them. Participate with them. This is the week that as a family, you decide, you know what, we're going to go through our pantry and we're going to find all the stuff that we can, and we're going to give that away because we can. Because our kids need to learn what it's like to sacrifice and to serve. This is the week that you go, and maybe you go on a local mission trip somewhere. And you take them with you because you want them to learn what it's like to serve. You want them to learn what it's like to lead. This is maybe the first time that they get up and they pray in front of a group of people. And they're nervous as all get out, and you're more nervous about what they're going to say. This is an important week. This is a week that they get to go to LTC. This is the week they bring what they learned at LTC back to this congregation and this community, and they plug it in, and they bless our church, because here's something I want you to hear, kids. It's just because we're talking about raising you, and just because we're talking about how to begin with the end in mind, doesn't mean that right now you can't do things for God. Right now, you can do things that impact the kingdom, even though you may be young. Because I believe in this week right here, the week that someone like me needs to see someone like you standing up here or singing a song or blessing or serving in a children's ministry. This is that week that someone who's older needs to see you doing it to encourage us to do it also. The sad news is that this is just a phase, that I'm past halftime, that the time is escaping. We had a thing called Promotion Sunday this Sunday, and then last week we gave out, or maybe a couple weeks ago, we gave out Bibles. I want to let you know that just like it's important for the little ones to have these Bibles right here, this is an amazing time right here. You know what's amazing about this time is because if we've been in this phase reading this Bible to these kids, singing about loving God, in this phase right here, something fantastic happens. When they learn to read, and they can open that book up, and they can read to you God's Word. What a blessing. But that doesn't happen on accident. That happens because we live on purpose, for a purpose, beginning with the end in mind. It's also a time when we have things like soccer cleats and baseball cleats and ballerina slippers, and we have a million things that we can be doing. It can be a really busy time. That phase can be an insanely busy time for families, and I want to encourage families not to get too busy for this right here. Let's make this a priority. Let's begin with the end in mind, remembering that we are raising faithful people, that's our goal. Is when we started way over here in this phase, our goal was that when we get to the end of these phases, that we have a faithful child of God. So here's where I am. This is actually all of my children would be right here in this spot right here. This is the first week they go and hang out with Dylan Fabrizio. And God help them. No. This is a week they start really making their faith their own. When they start making some decisions about if God's going to be the God of their life. And that doesn't happen just in this phase. That started here. That started in the beginning when we were playing with toys and we were singing, "I love to pat the Bible." This right here is a special week to me because this is a week they get to go to op camp with me. And I take them to serve and love kids and become mission-minded. This is that first week of high school, which I forgot to mention that first week of junior high. Middle school, I think they call it now. These are important weeks that slip by if we're not careful. That if we're not living intentionally, these weeks just seem to pass and we get busy. But they keep going. It's important for us to recognize that this week right here, it's a week that they need you because they've been hurt deeply by a friend. They've been insulted, they've been ridiculed, they've been made fun of, and they need you this week right here. They need you not to be too busy. But this is just a phase. This is a phase that's passing. And so I want us to remind ourselves to begin here with the end in mind. Now, I want to stop for just a second because it was in that phase that someone invited me to church. You see, I didn't start here. I started right in here. So, if you're sitting there thinking, "Man, I didn't have parents who brought me to church," or "Man, I'm kind of late in the game here," I want you to know that I started right here, and people started putting marbles in my bucket and investing in me. And I have this right here. It's a Bible I got when I was baptized. And inside of it, my good friend Bruce, which some of you know about, wrote these words: "I consider everything a loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I've lost all things." He took and made the most of a week by writing words that I still cherish today. There's a reason I have this Bible, even though it's fallen apart. It's because it matters to me. I want to stop right now because we made a crack at Dylan, and I feel bad, kind of. But no, it's time for us to talk about children's ministry and youth ministry and the ministry that we do here at this building. Did you know that if you calculate the time that we have our kids, if you had your kid here for all 52 weeks of the year, every time the doors were open, do you know that if you totaled that all up, all you would get was 17 weeks? That's if they're here every time. So, in all likelihood, it's probably closer to 10 to 15. We have 10 to 15 weeks to tell these kids the most precious story ever told. We have 10 weeks to invest intentionally in these kids. But Dylan, you have less than 10 weeks to tell them about Jesus. So, parents, it's not up to Dylan to give your children faith because that's all he has. And I know Dylan, and he's going to do his very best with this. And I know God, and God can do a lot with this right here. He can do amazing things with 10 weeks. But he can do a lot with 936 also. So, I want to beg you to plug in to wherever your child is in this. If they're in the youth ministry, I want you to plug in with Dylan. Ask, how can we help? Can we go on a trip? Can we sponsor a class? Can we host something? If your kids are in Carol's ministry, I want you to plug in with her. I want you to ask, can I teach a class, please? And she'll fall over. And you may fall over. But you'll make it through it because God gave you those kids. I want you to hunt Catherine down after this, and I want you to tell her, I want to serve in your ministry some way, somehow. I don't know how you can use me, but I want you to. And that doesn't go for just the parents. That goes for all of us. Because you know what our kids need more than anything else? Two things. They need people to pray for them, and they need good role models. There are studies out there that say that children will keep their faith if they have 5 people in their lives that are not their parents that are encouraging them to keep their faith. So when my little baby goes off to college, I'm expecting 5 of you. I'm expecting 5 of you to call her and say, how are you doing? What church are you going to? How is your college group? And that is why the family is so important. That is why it's important for us to remember to begin with the end in mind, because right here is a scary time because we're getting close, right? We're getting close to the end, which some of you are praying for. It's okay. This is a time when children start developing independence. And that is not an evil thing. That is not a bad thing. Because I want my children to develop independence. I want them to have a faith that is their own. I love that I get to hand them that. I love that I get to hand them a heritage of faith. But I want them to develop a faith of their own. And this is that week. Because sometime between the ages of 15 and 16, children will decide if they're going to keep the faith. They're going to decide if they're going to run that race. And that decision, although it happens here, it begins over here. So, like I said before, all you people who are in the nurseries, who are patting Bibles, who are loving kids, what you're doing is important. Because you're leading up to a decision of faith. When they're 16, they're going to get a set of these, hopefully. And what's amazing when they get that is this is the week they drive themselves to a Bible study because they want to. This is the week that they say, you know what? I'll pick you up and take you to Bible study because we've been teaching them all along to be evangelistic, to bring others to Christ. And so what they do is they bring somebody that week. This is the week that they go to camp and they lead. They're not just following, they're leading at this point because we've been training them to lead, because we've been encouraging them to lead, because we began with that end in mind. This is a week they get a Bible like this that a sweet lady named Kay gave to me. And she wrote this: to Matt, all children of God are surely blessed, and He has blessed you many times over. May you take these blessings and apply them to your life. I pray as you do, you will follow His word as well. Just a lady in the congregation. She wasn't the youth minister's wife. She was just a lady that loved me. And she wrote words in this Bible for me to remember. And this is that week. That we can make a difference in the life of a child. That we can influence them for Christ. That they can learn and grow in His word and in His way and in His will. But it's just a phase. Parents of seniors, here it is. The last 48 weeks you have. And when these were filled with with lots of firsts, first steps, first words, first sentences, this one's filled with lots of lasts. Last time they'll go to that school as a student. Last time they'll sit in that youth group class. Last time they'll go on a mission trip as a high schooler. The last time they'll play that sport for their school, representing you and their school. The last summer they'll have under your roof. Because after they turn 18, it's not like they're not your child anymore, but it's different, right? After they turn 18, they're still your child, but it's different. And this is that week that you start realizing that. This is the week that they apply for college. And you're excited because they applied for college. And this is just a phase. And it goes by really, really fast. But it's important to do things like this. This is the Bible that the Apostle Paul carried, apparently, because it is it's seriously like you can get some biceps carrying this thing. But this is the Bible my parents gave me when I went to AIM. Because they wanted to support me and they didn't know how. Because they couldn't imagine somebody launching out and going and trusting that people were going to support me and telling people about Jesus. But they wanted to give me something, so they gave me this. It's important to support our kids' endeavors in faith, even when it may not make sense to us. And this right here is a week that we started with right here, D. Here it is. It's a week you're going to take that baby and you're going to drop them off at a college. And you're hoping that what you've done in these 935 weeks makes a difference. And you're trusting that it will, because it's just a phase. And we can get really sad right here. Like lots of mamas start crying, and it's okay. The emotions are fantastic. But we can also be really excited because you know what God did? He gave you 936 weeks to invest in the life of a child. He gave you almost 1,000 weeks to invest in that life of a child. And you know what? Yes, we're going to have days where we make mistakes, but we can redeem it through the weeks. Because over time, guess what happens? When we have fun over time, we have belonging. When we are part of a community over time, you know what we have? We have some place that feels like home. When we will love someone over time, you know what they receive? They receive the blessing of knowing that there are people who have their back and have had their back over 936 weeks. Over time, we can do amazing things. Did you know that water, over time, can erode the hardest rock? That over time, we can do amazing things. And God has placed you in the midst of this family so that over time, we can affect the lives of children, and they can affect the lives of other children, and they can affect the lives of other children, because I believe that we are raising a legacy of faith here. That we have a heritage that we have inherited from other people, and that is our duty to pass that on. I don't know if you watched the Olympics. I was a little disappointed in the sprint relay team for the men. A little frustrated because the handoff got messed up again. The handoff is so important because they're running along, and the person in front sticks his hand back. Actually sticks that hand back. And the runner hands it off. And we've been handed the baton. It's our turn. We have the baton in our hands. Will we carry it and hand that baton off well? Because over time, things matter. Over time, it matters if we love children. Over time, it matters if we love our community. Over time, it matters if we care that people are dying without Jesus. And our children will see that. And not just our children, but us as well. Because here's where I am. If you take this jar and this jar right here, I'm somewhere near there. Because here's the truth. Is people are still investing in my life. There's still people that every week they add a marble, that it's changing. I want you to look at Deuteronomy 6 one more time. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all of your soul, with all of your soul, with all of your strength, with all of your heart. These commands that I have given you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Because at the end of our children's lives, I want them to be able to say, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award to me on that day. I want our children to be able to say that in that week right there. Because I want to be investing in the lives of families, in the life of kids, in the lives of people, because I want them to be able to say in that last week of their life, I have fought the good fight. I am being poured out like a drink offering. But I have fought that good fight. There was a movie not long ago that maybe some of you remember about a Scottish man. And his name was William Wallace. And William Wallace was this hero of sorts for these people because they were being oppressed. And if you remember that scene, and I'm not endorsing the whole movie, but this scene so poetically illustrates it for me. That if you remember that scene where they line up against the English armies, and the English armies are huge, and it's just a bunch of farmers on the other side with some handmade implements. And they're about to turn around and run away because the task before them seems so great. Because it seems impossible that in 936 weeks that they could raise a faithful child. But before them was that English army. And here comes William Wallace riding on a horse. And he's riding in, and he's making this impassioned speech. And he says to them, I see a whole army of my countrymen. And Jason talked about this morning that we are from the same country, although we may have different ethnicities. That we are from a country from a city whose builder and founder is God. We're looking forward to that city. And William Wallace says, I see a whole army of my countrymen here today in defiance of tyranny. Because that's what we're here today. We are in defiance of Satan saying that death has power over us, saying that sin can hold us. Because we are here today in defiance of that. And someone in the crowd shouted, 200 against 10,000. No, we will run and we will live. And Wallace retorts, yes, run and you will live for a while. But how many of you would trade all the days from this day to that to come back for just one chance to tell our enemy that he can take our lives, but he can never take our freedom? Because Satan can destroy this body. But I have a hope that is not here. I have a hope that's in heaven. I am standing on a promise that Jesus Christ made to me. And I believe that He is faithful to keep His promises. So I will stand in the face of the enemy and say, bring whatever you got. Because as Elijah's servant found out, those that are with us are a whole lot more than those that are with them. But it's going to take some intestinal fortitude. It's going to take some guts. It's going to take some decisions on what we're going to do with these 936 weeks to raise up an army, to prepare children to face that enemy. Because he will come, and when he comes, they need to be prepared. They need to be equipped, knowing that they can lean on Jesus, who is the rock. And that when they can fight no longer, Jesus will fight for them. Now, it's time for an invitation, which some of you have been waiting for. But I want to encourage you with this week right here. This week right here is the week that you get real with your faith. This week right here is a week that you make a decision. You say, what? I'm going to follow Jesus. And I'm not looking around at what everybody else is doing, because I am following the maker and the creator of heaven. I am following the author and the perfecter of life. And I'm forsaking all others. And I'm picking up a cross, and I'm going to pick it up every day. Because here's the truth. Some of us may have been baptized a while ago, but this may be the week that we pick that cross back up again and say, you know what? I will follow Him. I will continue to follow Him. Because this lesson isn't just for people who are raising children. This lesson is for all of us. To remember that somebody is investing in you, and you are investing in somebody. And if you're still breathing, if you still have a pulse, God still has a purpose. So let us continue to invest. Let us continue to grow. Let us continue to press in and advance toward the enemy. Because the one that is with us is greater than the one that is with them. If you have any need, won't you come as we stand and sing?